Let's hear 3 thoughts of trends or themes that emerged at your table. 3 people. Thank you. I'm going to hurry. I know.
Our discussion ended with the idea that project-based learning could be really powerful and that it doesn't feel like it could be done 100% of the time, that there still needs to be balance with direct instruction, et cetera. And what I was just about to say when Kristen told us to stop was, it kind of reminds me of whole language. You know, is the idea that you have to fill them with all this knowledge before they can do anything, or are they learning those things as you go because you present them with opportunities to experience them? So it just takes you back. The pendulum swings, right?
The idea of balance is very important. Another thought.
It impacts outcomes.
Thank you, Julie. Balance impacts outcomes, yeah. That's what she said. Another thought.
We were talking about how teachers really need concrete examples of this to get going, and Cindy was sharing an example from what school, Cindy? Cimarron. From Cimarron, where they have souls for souls. Is that what it's called? So students in art class are taking bits of clay, and they're making prints from their shoes, making them into pendants, selling them to high school students. So think about everything that goes on there, and then getting that money to send to buy soles for kids in Africa that don't have shoes. Oh, sorry, that's the soles, but for the shoes.
Soul? Selling your soul? My kids go to that school.
Yeah. We are not selling those soles, no. It's the soles for shoes. And then that kind of, we had a discussion here about kindergarten through 3rd grade, kind of maybe they're thinking over there where, you know, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, you're learning to read to access text, and you're learning how to get in line and collaborate and work in a group. So we were saying it can work in K through 3, but we were thinking we wish we had more maybe concrete examples of what it would look like in the younger grades.
Thank you.
Well, we kind of said the same thing because we were talking about how much it would transform, like a whole school would have to make this transformation. And that we were talking about how for kids that already in 1st and 2nd grade have started to disengage, how this could be how you could re-engage them so that by the time they get to high school, they're not like, oh, I'm just playing this game to get out of here. But then on the flip side, we were like, but how do you not lose those kids that they can't leave without knowing how to tell time, or, you know, and then we were like, so that we'd have to have so much technology, and then how do you help them at home, because this is changing the model of thinking for parents to release that homework. And then we got to talking about teacher evaluation. How do you evaluate a teacher when you're like working as projects, and I don't know. It's like, it makes you think. And already I'm like tired about it. I'm like, oh my God.
She's already tired. Something interesting, a trend or a theme that I heard from all the tables was that we hear in the K2, K3, teachers are saying, but they need a base. Here, all the way up into high school, you'll hear high school teachers say, but there's so many skills that they need to know that we can't possibly do it. So I leave you with this thought, if not me, who? If not now, when? I think philosophically, we all agree. But it comes down to, well, how does it look and how can it be? Yeah. 2 facilitator tips. I'm just going to step back. When you are working with, if you're going to be a trainer for a variety of teachers, when you are asking for audience feedback, never give away your mic. Why do you think that might be? You may not get it back. And especially if someone is really struggling, and some people struggle out loud, which I think is very appropriate. But if you've given away your mic and she's struggling out loud, it's hard for me to grab it back, right?
Like my soul's thing.
Right. Like selling my children's soul, right. Okay, and the other thing is when you're in dialogue, and that's what that was, dialogue, because there really is, we're not coming to a decision, to listen for lulls in the group. So I listened until I heard one lull is pushing it a little bit fast because we need to get on, and that's what I listened for. 2 lulls will mean that everybody is finished with everything they had to say. Just interesting, okay? We're going to be watching a video, and I want you to think about project-based learning. We're going to watch a video about it, and also a teacher talking about assessment. How does this link with assessment? We don't want to do projects just for the sake of projects, and we want to figure out what we're measuring. What are they learning from it? So watch this video for that piece.
You know, along the way, they should be responsible for making some drawings and writing down a process, fabrication process, because if you can write this down before you actually get in there and start doing it, it's, you know, it saves a lot of energy.
I don't think there's anything more important than designing great assessments right at the beginning. So the third module, Plan the Assessment, is about thinking through very carefully what you want your students to know and do at the end of the project and how you're going to assess them.
On March 24th, you're going to stand in front of your peers, you're going to stand in front of your parents, you're going to stand in front of a panel of engineers, and you're going to say, here's our wing design, this is the one we recommend, and here's why. You will have data, you will have graphs, you will have a clear presentation with clear roles, and you're going to knock the socks off people.
You could have everything in before the test is done. You could have them make a prediction of how strong they think it's going to be. They can have measured it in advance, and then they can discuss about the way that the thing failed and how they thought it was going to fail versus the way it really did fail.
Yeah, and see, I think that would be very powerful. We start with an abstract. Here was our wing design. Here's why we thought it would work. Here's how we built it. Here's what we thought would happen with the actual model. Here's what actually happened. Here's why. And that might take the form of an interview. It might take the form of a formal note. It might take the form of a postie. You know, and I don't know. With team responsibilities and communication, uses, you know, a teamwork rubric, measuring things like, did you have team norms? Did you have team responsibilities? Was it very clear from the outset? Here are the list of skills that we need, and here are the gifts that you bring to that group.
Are you going to have something about the correctness of their science understanding in there, or is that going to be evident in the design process?
It will be in the product. It will be in the final product, in the like a formal lab report.
And so we're still missing the 2x4.
Okay, we can get that for you.
Yep.
Most projects culminate in some kind of end product. Rubrics or criteria that measure these products inform the teacher and the student of what is expected of them and how well they've met those expectations.
I would like to encourage you to draft a design process rubric that can be used for other design projects. That it not be project specific, so that we can avoid rubric fatigue by using one rubric most of the time rather than always crafting project specific ones.
I'm right there with you.
Are you going to have the kids evaluate themselves?
Absolutely.
Okay, so is it going to be teacher evaluated or just student peer self-evaluation?
Both.
Okay.
What I anticipate is that there will be a triple column. My group, myself, my teacher.
Okay, great. That's important to identify who's doing what part of the assessment. So what I'm hearing you say is if it's the design process that you want to assess, you'll use a variety of assessment tools. One of them is the design file you're asking kids to keep. And you'll be looking for certain things to be in there, like notes, initial designs, something jotted on the initial design of why they went with it or didn't go with it, this kind of thing. Something that gives you evidence of the thought process they've been through. Okay, so it's a record.
Yep.
So that we don't just have this wing design appear out of nowhere. You're also talking about using an interview. I'm assuming that's you with the kids?
I think, well, when I thought about it in my head, it was me with the kids.
Yeah, that's great.
Depending on your availability, Doug, I think that would be a very powerful piece for you to come in. I mean, if you have that kind of time or interest, to come in and say, boy.
We can work that.
That's perfect.
Engineer Doug Gross drafted his colleagues to serve as judges for the students' presentations.
So I've included in your packet the criteria, front and back, and there's one for each group for each judge.
One of the most powerful ways that you can use to get really good performance in projects is to choose an audience outside the school and to choose an audience of adults. Anytime students get in front of adults, their performance usually gets a lot better because, like anyone else, they want to look good in front of an audience.
Our task for this project was to create a high-efficiency, low-weight wing that, when tested, would, it would show the values you'd want for a real wing.
Using a criteria scoring guide provided by teacher Scott McComb, the engineers rated each team in categories that ranged from design process and technical performance to reports and presentations. The guide was just one of many factors that went into a student's grade for the project. They were also assessed on their efforts by their teammates, as well as on their completed design files.
These kids, the way they present themselves, they're articulate, they know what they're about, they know what they've learned, they've obviously been able to work together, and in a situation like this, for ninth graders to pull off something like that is absolutely remarkable.
The whole stage 2 presentation is linked in Edmodo. Bob linked it again because we can see how many people are on it, so you may not have known it was there. Also in Edmodo is a document that I want you to reference, and it is called, just so I make sure I'm very clear, the Quality Performance Assessment Resource Guide. Can you go forward? This is a document that's being created by Dr. Morgan. I'm in the assessment office. It was just released to us yesterday, but it is in draft form. So this isn't final. This is not something you should have seen before today. This is new. Yes? Permission to access it. Who owns it? Can you? Bob's checking on it, just a second. All right, you should be able to access it now. You might need to refresh. Go back out and go back in. Yeah, now you can get it. Okay? And the part that you're going to look at is this first assessment rubric that looks like this. Okay, the very first rubric that appears. And in triads, come to consensus about the assessment you saw in this video. Was it highly effective, effective, or ineffective, below effective, based on that rubric? When your triad comes to consensus, consensus means that you are all, that no one's willing to, no one's disagreeing to the point where they cannot go along with the decision. Go ahead and post that or vote in Edmodo. That poll will be in Edmodo. Okay, so use the rubric, think about the video, and analyze the assessment that you saw in terms of highly effective, effective, or below effective.